In the heart of Seoul, a deadly secret is flickering on a hidden screen. What happens when a ruthless Korean mafia boss meets a brave Nigerian student nurse with nothing to lose? Hyun thought he was the one doing the watching, but he wasn't prepared for what he would see. This is a story of betrayal, forbidden passion, and a cross-cultural loyalty that defies the laws of the underworld. Don't miss a single heartbeat of this journey. Follow the story of Sonya and Hyun to see if love can truly survive in the shadows of the syndicate. Let me know in the comments what country you're watching from. If this video touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring stories. Your support means the world to me. The air in the Garyong estate felt like ice. Hyun adjusted his silk tie, his knuckles bruised from a meeting earlier that morning. In the underworld of Seoul, power wasn't just held, it was defended with blood. But his greatest threat wasn't a rival gang, it was the silence coming from his father's bedroom. "Is the feed live?" Hyun muttered. His tech specialist nodded, tapping a tablet. Immediately, 16 high-definition squares flickered to life. They were everywhere, behind the antique mirrors, inside the smoke detectors, and tucked into the eyes of a stuffed phoenix. Hyun didn't trust the doctors, and he certainly didn't trust the staff. "The new girl arrives today," the specialist whispered. "The one from the agency, a student nurse from Nigeria." Hyun leaned closer to the screen. He saw a young woman standing at the iron gates. She wore a simple, professional scrub top and carried a backpack that looked too heavy for her frame. Her name was Sonya. To the world, she was just a migrant worker looking for a tuition check. To Hyun, she was a potential spy. "Watch her," Hyun commanded, his eyes narrowing. "The moment she touches something she shouldn't, or the moment my father's heart rate spikes, you call me. I want to see everything." He watched as Sonya entered the room. She didn't look around with greed or curiosity. Instead, she walked straight to the great chairman's bed, knelt down, and placed a gentle hand on his withered arm. Hyun felt a strange pull in his chest. He had spent his life watching people scream in fear. Seeing someone offer comfort, even if it was a lie, felt like a glitch in his reality. He didn't know then that this maid would soon become the only person capable of shattering his cold world. Will Sonya survive the lion's den of the Garyong Syndicate? Click that follow button and subscribe now so you don't miss the first encounter. The secrets of the Mafia are just beginning to unravel. Hyun didn't stay behind the screen for long. He needed to smell the air in the room, to see if Sonya carried the scent of fear or the metallic tang of a hidden blade. He entered the chairman's suite just as Sonya was adjusting the IV drip. She didn't flinch when the heavy mahogany doors slammed. She didn't even turn around immediately. She finished securing the tape on his father's hand before standing to face the man the newspapers called the Dragon of Gangnam. "You are late with the vitals," Hyun said, his voice a low growl. Sonya met his gaze. Most people looked at the floor when Hyun spoke. She looked him dead in the eye. "I was checking his breathing first, sir. Numbers on a monitor don't tell the whole story. A man's spirit does." Hyun took a step into her personal space. He was a head taller, draped in a $3,000 suit that radiated power. Sonya stood her ground, her expression calm. "In this house, only the numbers matter," he hissed. "Do your job, don't speak to him, don't pray over him, and most importantly, don't look at me like that again." He turned to leave, but his heart was racing. It wasn't anger. It was the realization that for the first time in 10 years, someone wasn't looking at his reputation. They were looking at him. It was 2:00 a.m. Hyun sat in his darkened office, the glow of the surveillance monitors the only light. He watched screen 4, the chairman's bedroom. Sonya thought she was alone. She had pulled a small wooden stool to the side of the bed. She wasn't sleeping on the job. Instead, she was quietly humming a melody that sounded nothing like Korean pop or traditional pansari. It was soulful, rhythmic, and ancient. As she hummed, she massaged the chairman's paralyzed legs with a specialized oil she had brought from her own bag. Hyun's hand hovered over the intercom to scold her for using unapproved medicine, but he stopped. On the monitor, his father's fingers that hadn't moved in 6 months, twitched. Sonia smiled, a genuine, warm expression that lit up the grainy black and white footage. She leaned in and whispered something in her native tongue, Edo. Hyun found himself leaning toward the screen, wishing he could translate the warmth in her voice. He realized then that Sonia wasn't just a maid. She was a light in a house built on shadows. The tension in the syndicate reached a breaking point. During a tense lunch, Hyun's cousin, Minho, gifted a box of expensive traditional herbal tea for the chairman's recovery. For the old man's health, Minho said with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Hyun brought the tea to the suite. He watched through the hidden camera as Sonia prepared it. He saw her pause. She held the tea bag to her nose, her brow furrowing. She didn't dip it in the water. Instead, she poured a drop of the dry herbs onto her palm and tasted a tiny grain. Suddenly, she rushed to the bathroom and spat it out. Through the camera, Hyun saw her eyes go wide with realization. She didn't call for help. She didn't run. She took the tea, walked to a potted plant and poured it out, replacing the liquid with plain, darkened water to make it look consumed. She knew. She knew someone was trying to kill the chairman, and she had just saved his life without a single word. Hyun intercepted Sonia in the hallway that evening. He grabbed her arm and pulled her into a storage closet, pinning her against the door. The air between them was electric, thick with unspoken questions. "Why didn't you report the tea?" he demanded, his face inches from hers. Sonia's breath hitched, but she didn't struggle. "Because I don't know who I can trust in this house, Mr. Hyun, including you. I am his son. And you are also a man who hides cameras in his father's room," she shot back, her voice a fierce whisper. "You watch me every night. I know they are there." Hyun froze. He thought he was the hunter, but Sonia had seen through the trap all along. In the cramped, dark space, the scent of her cocoa butter lotion mixed with his expensive cologne. For a second, the Mafia boss forgot about the war outside. He could only feel the heat of the woman who was becoming his only ally. Is Sonia playing a dangerous game? Or is she the only person Hyun can truly trust? Don't miss the next chapters. Subscribe and follow now to see what happens when the hidden cameras capture a moment that changes everything. The heat is rising in Seoul. The tension is reaching a boiling point. Hyun and Sonia are no longer just observer and subject. They are becoming two souls bound by a dangerous secret. The silence in the storage closet was heavy. Sonia's revelation that she knew about the cameras shattered Hyun's sense of control. He didn't let go of her arm. Instead, his grip softened, his thumb brushing against the sleeve of her scrubs. "If you knew I was watching," Hyun whispered, "why didn't you leave? Why stay in a house of vipers?" "Because your father's eyes reminded me of my grandfather," Sonia replied, her voice steady despite the proximity. "And because I saw how you looked at him through those screens. You aren't looking for a traitor, Hyun. You're looking for a reason to hope." Hyun pulled back, shaken by her insight. He opened the door, the light of the hallway spilling in. "From now on, you eat and drink nothing that doesn't come directly from my hand. The tea was just the beginning." To flush out the traitor, Hyun hosted a mandatory dinner for the syndicate's high-ranking members. He commanded Sonia to serve the drinks, putting her right in the line of fire. As she moved through the room in a traditional silk dress Hyun had bought for her, a stark contrast to her nursing scrubs, the Mafia lieutenants leered at her. Min-ho, the cousin who sent the poisoned tea, stopped her, sliding a hand onto her waist. Hyun's hand tightened around his glass until the crystal cracked. Through the earpiece Sonya was secretly wearing, he growled, "Don't react. Move to the left. I'm coming to you." But Sonya didn't wait for him. She skillfully pivoted, spilling a drop of cold champagne on Min-ho's hand. As he hissed in annoyance, she leaned in and whispered, "The chairman is waking up, sir. He remembers everything." The blood drained from Min-ho's face. Sonya had just fired the first shot in a psychological war. At 3:00 a.m., the cameras in the hallway went black. Hyun, watching from his tactical room, stood up so fast his chair overturned. He grabbed his suppressed pistol and bolted toward his father's suite. He didn't need the cameras to know that Min-ho had moved up his timeline. Inside the room, the power was cut. In the moonlight, Hyun saw a shadow leaning over his father's bed, a pillow held high. But before the shadow could strike, a smaller figure lunged from the darkness of the corner. It was Sonya. She didn't have a gun, but she had a heavy brass lamp. With a cry of primal protection, she swung. The sound of metal meeting bone echoed through the room. Hyun burst through the door, kicking the assassin, one of his own disgruntled bodyguards, away from Sonya. He neutralized the man with 3 swift strikes, but his eyes immediately went to Sonya. She was slumped against the bedpost, a gash on her forehead bleeding profusely. She had used her own body to shield the chairman from the assassin's knife. "Sonya," Hyun dropped his weapon, rushing to her side. The chairman," she gasped, pointing to the old man who was wide-eyed and breathing heavily. "He's okay. Check him first." "Forget him," Hyun snapped, his voice breaking. He scooped her up in his arms, ignoring the blood staining his white shirt. For the first time in his life, the Mafia boss felt true, paralyzing terror, not of death, but of losing the only light he had ever known. Hyun took Sonya to his private quarters, refusing to let the syndicate doctors touch her. He cleaned the wound on her forehead himself, his hands trembling, hands that were usually steady enough to kill. As the adrenaline faded, the air in the room changed. Sonya reached up, her fingers trembling as she touched the scar on Hyun's cheek. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved my father," he countered. "Why, you owe us nothing." "In my home, we don't leave the vulnerable behind," she said softly. Hyun leaned in, the space between them disappearing. The danger outside was still real, but in this room there was only the scent of Sonya's skin and the raw, electric pull of 2 people from different worlds finding home in each other. He leaned down, his lips finally brushing hers in a kiss that tasted of salt, blood, and a desperate, newfound loyalty. The war for the Garyong Syndicate has officially begun, and Sonya is now the most wanted woman in Seoul. Will Hyun burn the city down to keep her safe? Subscribe and follow the story of Sonya and Hyun now to catch the boss's vengeance. Don't miss the heat. The morning after the attack, Hyun didn't send Sonya back to the maid's quarters. He moved her into the master's suite, guarded by his most loyal men. The syndicate was buzzing. A foreign girl had spilled the blood of a Garyong soldier. The elders were calling for her head, claiming she was a distraction. "They want you gone," Hyun said, watching her wrap her own bandage with practiced ease. "And what do you want, Hyun?" she asked, her voice steady. Hyun walked over and took the bandage from her, finishing the knot. "I want the man who sent that assassin to watch as I take everything from him, and I want you by my side when I do it." He handed her a small, encrypted phone. "This connects only to me. If you see a shadow move where it shouldn't, you press one button. I will level this city to get to you." Hyun dragged the traitorous bodyguard into the courtyard, intending to make an example of him in front of the entire staff. He raised his fist, his face a mask of cold fury. "Stop," Sonya's voice rang out from the balcony. The Mafia soldiers gasped. No one interrupted the boss. Sonya hurried down the stairs, her eyes filled with a different kind of strength. She walked right up to the bloodied man and looked at his hands. They were shaking from more than just fear. "He has Parkinson's tremors," she whispered to Hyun. "Minho probably promised him medicine or a pension for his family. He's not a monster, he's desperate." Hyun looked at the man, then back at Sonya. The old Hyun would have pulled the trigger, but the man who watched Sonya pray for his father felt a strange, new weight in his chest. He lowered his hand. "Throw him out. If I see him in Seoul again, he dies, but give him his pension." The soldiers whispered. The dragon was softening, or perhaps he was finally becoming a king. To escape the suffocating tension of the estate, Hyun took Sonya to a private greenhouse on the edge of the city. For a few hours, the cameras were off. There were no bodyguards, only the scent of blooming jasmine and the humid air of the night. "In Edo, we say that a person who plants a tree believes in the future," Sonya said, touching a leaf. Hyun stood behind her, his chest pressed against her back. "I never believed in the future. I only believed in the next hour." He turned her around, his hand sliding into her hair. The chemistry that had been simmering behind camera lenses and through whispered hallway conversations finally boiled over. The kiss was no longer desperate. It was a claim. In the heat of the greenhouse, the barriers of language and status melted away, leaving only the raw, pulse-pounding truth of their connection. While Hyun was distracted by his feelings, Minho made a final, desperate move. He leaked a doctored video to the syndicate elders, showing Sonya tampering with the chairman's IV drip. He framed her as a spy sent to weaken the family. Hyun was summoned to a high council meeting. "The girl must be executed," the eldest member declared. "She is poison in the house of Gurion." Hyun pulled out his own tablet. "You want to see the video? Let's see the real video." He played the footage from his hidden cameras. The footage of Sonya fighting off the assassin, the footage of her saving the chairman from the poisoned tea, and the footage of her praying over the old man's bed. "She didn't come here to destroy us," Hyun shouted, his voice echoing in the hall. "She came here to show us how to live, and anyone who touches her deals with me." Hyun returned to the estate to find Sonya sitting by his father's bed. The room was quiet, but as Hyun entered, he saw something that made his breath catch. The chairman was sitting up. His eyes, once cloudy and distant, were sharp. He was holding Sonya's hand. "Hyun," the old man rasped, his voice unused for months. Hyun fell to his knees by the bed. "Father." "This girl," the chairman whispered, looking at Sonya with immense respect. "She told me stories of the red soil of her home. She told me I had to wake up to protect my son. You chose well, Hyun. She is the iron this family was missing." But the moment of peace was shattered by the sound of sirens and gunfire at the front gate. Minho wasn't waiting for the council's permission anymore. The coup had begun. The syndicate is at war, and the chairman has finally spoken. Will Sonya's nursing skills be enough to save the man she's grown to love amidst the crossfire? Subscribe and follow the journey of Sonya and Hyun to see the siege of Gurion. The final battle is coming. The battle for the Gurion syndicate has moved from the shadows into the light of the moon. The estate is under siege, and the only thing standing between the chairman and certain death is a mafia boss who has finally found his heart, and a woman who refuses to let it stop beating. The first explosion rocked the west wing, shattering the priceless porcelain vases in the hallway. Minho's mercenaries had bypassed the outer gates. "Get him to the safe room," Hyun shouted over the ring of gunfire. Sonya didn't panic. While the bodyguards scrambled for their weapons, she grabbed her medical kit and a heavy wool blanket. She and Hyun hoisted the chairman into a reinforced wheelchair. Hyun, the elevators are cut. Sonya cried as smoke began to billow under the door. The service stairs, Hyun commanded, drawing 2 pistols. Stay behind me. If I fall, you keep running. Don't look back, Sonya, not even for me. She grabbed his tactical vest, pulling him close for a fleeting, desperate second. You don't get to die today, Hyun. I didn't save this family just to watch you throw it away. The service stairwell was a death trap. They were halfway down when a flashbang detonated, blinding them. Hyun fired blindly into the haze, his ears ringing. He felt a sharp sting in his shoulder, a graze, but he couldn't stop. In the chaos, a mercenary lunged for the chairman. Sonya didn't hesitate. She swung her heavy medical bag, the metal instruments inside acting like a mace, catching the man in the temple. As he stumbled, she grabbed his discarded radio. Hyun, I have their frequency, she yelled. Listening to the chatter, she realized they weren't just after the chairman, they were targeting the gas lines. They're going to level the house. They reached the underground garage, but they were cornered. Minho stepped out from behind an armored SUV, a smug grin on his face. The king is dead, Hyun, and his little African pet is coming with me, Minho sneered, leveling his weapon at Sonya. Hyun stepped in front of her, his own gun empty. Let her go, Minho. This is between us. Suddenly, the chairman's voice rang out, stronger than it had been in years. You were always a fool, Minho. The distraction was all Sonya needed. She threw a chemical flare from her kit, creating a wall of blinding red magnesium light. In the confusion, Hyun tackled his cousin, the 2 men crashing into the concrete. Hyun stood over a defeated Minho, his hand trembling on the trigger of a retrieved gun. The rage in him was a physical heat. He wanted to end it. He wanted the blood to satisfy the years of paranoia. He looked at Sonya. She was kneeling by the chairman, checking his pulse, her face covered in soot and blood. She didn't scream, "Don't do it." She simply looked at Hyun with a profound sadness. Hyun realized that if he killed Minho in cold blood, he would become the monster Sonya had been trying to heal. He lowered the gun. Secure him, Hyun ordered his arriving loyalists. He faces the council, not a grave. As they escaped the burning estate in a nondescript van, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a raw, aching vulnerability. They were safe, but they were homeless. Hyun sat on the floor of the van, his head resting against the vibrating wall. Sonya moved toward him, wordlessly tearing away his blood-soaked shirt to tend to his shoulder wound. You spared him, she whispered, her hands gentle as she cleaned the flesh. I didn't want you to look at me the way I look at my own reflection, he admitted, his voice cracking. Sonya leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. The distance between Nigeria and Korea, between maid and boss, between light and dark, vanished. I see you, Hyun. Not the dragon, just the man. In the back of that van, amidst the scent of antiseptic and smoke, they shared a moment of intimacy more profound than any they had known before. A silent vow that no matter what happened to the Guryong Syndicate, they would never go back to being strangers. The estate is in ruins, but a new empire is rising from the ashes. Can Hyun and Sonya build a life where the shadows don't follow them? Subscribe and follow the story of Sonya and Hyun to reach the climactic, the council's verdict. The end is near. The end game has arrived. The fire at the estate has died down, but the fire in the heart of the syndicate is just beginning to roar. Hyun walked into the secret council chambers not as a fugitive, but as a king. Beside him, Sonya stood tall, her nursing scrubs replaced by a sharp black suit. The elders sat in a semicircle, their faces etched in stone. You brought a foreigner into our sanctuary, the head elder declared. You allowed a woman to witness our blood." Hyun didn't flinch. "I brought a witness to your failures," he countered. He pulled out a drive containing the hidden camera footage, not of the violence, but of the elders' secret meetings with Min-ho. "She didn't just save my father," Hyun's voice boomed. "She saved the soul of this family. If you want her gone, you lose the chairman's blessing, and you lose me." While the council debated, the doors swung open. The great chairman entered, supported by a cane in one hand and his loyal aide in the other. He looked at Sonya and gave a short, respectful nod. "The girl stays," the chairman commanded. "She is the only person in this room who didn't calculate my death for a profit." The elders lowered their heads in submission. The coup was officially over. But for Hyun and Sonya, a different struggle remained: how to live in a world that wasn't built for a love like theirs. In the quiet of the chairman's new, secure penthouse, Sonya stood on the balcony looking out at the Seoul skyline. The neon lights flickered like distant stars. "My visa is almost up, Hyun," she said softly. "I came here to be a nurse, to send money back to Edo to build a life. I didn't come here to be a mafia queen." Hyun stepped up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "Then don't be. I'm stepping down. I'm handing the daily operations to those I trust. I want to build hospitals, not empires. I want to build them with you." Sonya turned in his arms, her eyes searching his. "You would give up the dragon for me." "I'd give up the world for the woman who saw me through a camera and didn't run away," he whispered. 6 months later, the headlines in Seoul were no longer about gang wars, but about the Guryong Foundation, a massive initiative to support migrant workers and healthcare. Hyun and Sonya traveled together, not in armored SUVs, but in a private jet bound for Nigeria. Hyun was nervous. He had faced assassins and betrayal, but meeting Sonya's family in Edo State was a different kind of pressure. As they landed, the heat of the African sun hit them. Sonya looked at him, her face radiant. "Ready to meet the real bosses," she joked. Hyun took her hand, the heavy syndicate ring replaced by a simple gold band. "As long as you're the one watching over me," he replied. The story ends where it began, with a camera. But this time, it isn't hidden. It's a camera held by their young daughter, playing in a garden in Benin City. Hyun watches Sonya through the lens as she teaches a group of local nurses. She looks up and winks at the camera, knowing he's always watching, not out of paranoia, but out of a love that was forged in the darkest corners of Seoul. The mafia boss had learned mercy. The nurse from Nigeria had changed the fate of a family. And together, they proved that loyalty isn't about the blood you spill, but the lives you protect. Thank you for following the incredible journey of Sonya and Hyun. From the high-tech surveillance of Seoul to the red dust of Nigeria, their love defied every boundary. If you enjoyed this story of forbidden romance, mafia redemption, and cross-cultural bravery, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more gripping tales. Did you enjoy the journey of Sonya and Hyun? From the high-tech surveillance of a Seoul penthouse to the vibrant heart of Edo State, their story proves that even the coldest hearts can be thawed by genuine compassion and unwavering loyalty. If you loved this blend of mafia suspense and cross-cultural romance, make sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. We bring you the most gripping, heart-pounding, and emotionally charged stories every day. What was your favorite moment? Was it when Sonya stood her ground against the syndicate? Or the moment Hyun finally lowered his guard? Let us know in the comments below and stay tuned for our next story. You won't want to miss what's coming next.